I've stood in an elevator with a future murderer. I've driven a woman who tried to set me up. I've dated someone who might have killed me. And the scariest part? I almost ignored my gut every single time. Story 1. The Elevator. A few months ago, I was watching the first season of a new show, and within the first 2 minutes, there's a scene where the main character starts psychotically stabbing a man. I suddenly felt a sharp pit in my stomach. I'm usually a huge horror fan and rarely get fazed, but this scene made me feel trapped and panicked. After days of obsessive thinking, I remembered why. It was 2004. I was 11 years old. My mom worked as a paralegal at a family law firm in a quiet, relatively affluent city. One evening, around 7 p.m., she needed to stop by the office to grab urgent files, and she took me with her. We pulled into the parking lot, but she didn't get out. A man had pulled in behind us and left his headlights pointed at our car. It wasn't obviously threatening, but she felt something was off. After several minutes, she decided we'd go in quickly, grab the files, and leave. I didn't know at the time that the man got out of his car and followed us. We used her key card to enter the building and thought we were safe. Moments later, he walked in behind us. She frantically pressed the elevator button. When it arrived, the man stepped inside first and held the door open for us with a wide smile that didn't reach his eyes. My mom pretended to get a phone call and said we'd take the next elevator. As soon as the doors closed, she grabbed me and quietly said, "That's the man from the parking lot. I'm not getting into an elevator with him." We took the next elevator to her office on the second floor while he had gone to the third. We locked ourselves inside and waited in silence. Years later, she told me what really happened. That man had just left a heated custody mediation session with his estranged wife. He refused to sign divorce papers and stormed out. He sat in his car crying and using methamphetamine. Then he grabbed a pair of scissors from his glove compartment and went back inside. He went to the third floor and waited for his wife. When she entered the elevator, he ambushed her and stabbed her over 100 times with the scissors. He continued stabbing her in front of the mediator. When police arrived, he was holding her lifeless body and choking her. All of this happened while we were still in the building. We didn't hear anything because we were in the concrete stairwell. I often think about what would have happened if we had gotten into that elevator. Story 2. The Gas Station. In 1993, I was working the night shift at a plastics factory. Around 1:30 a.m., I stopped at a gas station because my car was nearly empty. A woman around my age approached me, looking terrified. She said some men in a large green car were harassing her. She pointed toward a car parked near the dumpsters. She looked clean and sober, just scared. So I let her get into my car. A few blocks later, she started looking around my vehicle and asking about money. Then she shouted, "There they are!" The green car was behind us. She started laughing hysterically and said her boys were going to mess me up. I sped through a yellow light just before it turned red, losing them in cross traffic. Then I slammed on the brakes. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt and hit the windshield. I pulled out a box cutter and screamed at her to get out of my car. She scrambled out and I drove off. A few minutes later, the shaking started. I pulled over to calm down. When I told my sister, she hugged me and yelled at me for not going to the police. Story 3. Ethan. In high school, I had colorful hair and piercings and didn't fit in. I met a guy named Ethan who wore an old rock band shirt. We became friends quickly, but he began mocking my appearance and manipulating me.
He convinced people we were in a relationship. Eventually, he moved into my family's home by pretending he was gay. He constantly shifted personalities. One day, I found a knife hidden in his pocket in my bedroom. Later, at a camping birthday party, he found out I had slept in a tent with another boy. He ripped open the tent and screamed hysterically. He forced me into his car and sped off, crying without emotion, repeating, "You were supposed to love me." He had a box cutter beside him. My mom chased us down. He stopped near a church. After my mom threatened him, he drove me back and said he was going to kill someone. He later turned himself in to the police. Weeks later, he was waiting outside my school, acting like a completely different person. Eventually, I cut him out of my life with the help of friends. Story 4. The White Van. When I was 16, I babysat 2 boys who had a massive Akita lab mix named Titan. One day, while walking to the playground, a white van slowed down and the men inside started yelling at us. 2 of them jumped out. I screamed for the boys to run. Titan broke free from my grip and charged at the men. He nearly grabbed one before they scrambled back into the van and drove off. Story 5. The Man at the Door. Another day, a man knocked on the door claiming he had something to drop off for the boy's mother. He seemed polite, but Titan physically blocked me from reaching the doorknob. I told the man to leave it on the porch. He insisted briefly, then left. When I described him to the mother later, she said she wasn't expecting anything and didn't know him. Story 6. University. At a troubled university in northern England, I lived in student housing. There was a shortcut through the back garden of an abandoned house. One morning, I found 3 large men standing there. They tried to call me over. I ran. Later, a friend told me a big man carrying a brick had asked if he'd seen a guy